Don't quote me after saying something else a few months ago, that cycle was dead. Cycle's making a comeback. So we're reinvesting into our cycle studios where we still have those in our market. And then, last but not least, and equally as important is, we're launching Studio Pilates in the fall in Colorado. So 14 reformers that will have instructor-led, augmented through TVs.
Really, a lot of it actually comes out of COVID.
Yeah.
COVID drove everyone completely crazy. So it made consumers absolutely obsessed and I think much more engaged and active in finding out information and seeking their own wellness story and finding things that work for them and just much more empowered, I suppose. The other thing that happened is it created health and wellness celebrities for the first time. I mean, Andrew Huberman had like 20 followers in 2020, and now he's got, 20 million followers. And really that all came during that time when everybody was so interested in finding out what was true, what was science-based, what is actual actionable information that they could trust.
Chris Gribby, COO of VASA Fitness. We're really glad to have you on. You might be the first person from VASA, I think. You can fact check me on this.
Okay.
That we've had on. Obviously, most people listening has heard of VASA, but you've kind of lived in your own region, but done incredibly well, grown a lot. Congrats on all the success and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thanks, gentlemen.
Well, you're just talking about this year, you've got 17 locations opening. That's
Correct.
right. 3 down.
14 to go.
No sleep till Christmas.
No.
What's been behind it is explosive growth for VASA, isn't it? What's been behind that? Is it just refine the model, opportunity in the area? Give us, what's really made this year probably different to many other years in the past for your brand?
Yeah, it's great question. I think number one is our goal is to make fitness accessible, right? And so a lot of players out there, California, Texas is becoming quite competitive. Florida, of course, leaves a bit of a space on the map, right? And being able to have this Arizona through Indiana, Ohio market space. And so I think it's a combination of a lot of folks have moved into those markets away from, higher price markets and settling into these markets. Number two is there's just not a lot of fitness opportunities for those members of these smaller suburban towns outside of Chicago or Indianapolis to be able to have this concept of HVLP where I can experience cold plunge and hot tub and sauna, steam and red light and all the fitness, accoutrements in there for a great price. And it seems to fit really nicely in those markets. From $15 to $45, it's a great price point for those folks in the Midwest to be able to really be able to experience things that they normally wouldn't experience unless they came here to New York and went to an Equinox or a Lifetime Fitness, those types of things. So it was this explosive growth on the real estate side of identifying, these mixed use areas, older grocery stores, Joann Fabrics, whatever it might be, and find that 50 to 70,000 square foot box for us to be able to introduce this concept into those new communities. And so it's just been nonstop with, like, as you said, 17 this year. So it's going to be our largest growth phase that we've been in since we've started.
How would you differentiate VASA from other brands like EOS or Amp Fitness that might be coming in your area, Crunch 3.0? How do you view yourself versus those brands?
Yeah, I think one word, studio. Like our studio concept is really the differentiator. So, our premium price point at that $45 a month is studio membership. So access to the fitness facility. Everybody has a bench press and treadmill, great. Basketball, group fitness. And then we start to get into some of the recovery modalities, right? So we've got, our human touch massage chairs. We've got red light therapy in our clubs. We've got the cold plunge, sauna, steam, and a pool. And then the differentiator is really studio. So think of boutique studio or that club and club concept. We have 4 right now. So we launched with Studio Red, which is going to be rebranded as Studio Hit. So that's our high intensity circuit training, cardio strength, 9-minute circuits. Really great for anybody, all ages. Don't want to think about the workout. Just go in, listen to an instructor who's live in that room and get on some really fun modalities and try that. And then Studio Flow was our second concept, which is our yoga concept. So under infrared panels, so deep heat for yoga is really cool, really differentiated. And 3 different levels, from a restore all the way up to more of a power yoga type mentality. And then Studio Lift is our newest one, which is more of a strength training, 2 people on a strength rack, upper body day, lower body day, total body day. So it's coached by an instructor, either a personal trainer or group fitness instructor, somebody certified in strength training, to be able to take those pairs through a traditional heavy strength. So it's heavy weights, longer recovery, which has been a great add-on for, obviously strength is really, really important and powerful now in our industry. Cycle is making a comeback. That's all I hear about today. Like, you know, don't quote me after saying something else a few months ago that Cycle was dead. Cycle's making a comeback. So we're reinvesting into our Cycle studios where we still have those in our market. And then, you know, last but not least, and equally as important is, we're launching Studio Pilates in the fall in Colorado. So 14 reformers that will have instructor-led, augmented through TVs into the facility. So really excited about it. So having that boutique, getting exposure to individuals that wouldn't join just a yoga studio or just a Pilates studio, but at a low price point, to be exposed to all of those boutique studio concepts under one roof is really our differentiator.
So HVLPs have been known to be very low on staff. Like that's I guess in what would you call it, 1.0, that's already been the model. You've given a nice example of what seems to be a very staff heavier model.
Correct.
And you've explained a few of the different modalities that you've got going into the clubs. What would you say, do you think, for your business is going to be more important and more of a differentiator as you go forward? Is it coming up with like the coolest program, or is it figuring out from a culture and a HR perspective, being able to bring in these people to deliver these programs to provide a unique service?
Yeah. I think number one is all about the people. It's a people culture, a people company. Yes, it can be augmented with technology, agentic AI, you know, our redesigned app and our website to make that member join experience or member experience better. But I think at the end of the day is the goal is for us to get the 18-year-old that starts off as a, you know, strength training with 4 or 5 of his buddies coming in there and kind of graduating through these levels within our club and retaining those members longer is going to be critical for us through, innovative programs, refreshing the programs frequently, more frequently than ever at this point through our studio concepts, re-injecting some emphasis into personal training. And we're launching some really cool creative things around, movement screen analysis and how does that play into personal training through our partners at Demotu. And so being able to, take you through a movement screen and say, all right, Matthew, I see you've got a little shoulder instability. Through some AI, through the personal trainer's knowledge, I can create a program for you based on the equipment in our club and get you, whether it's a studio or group fitness or one-on-one with the personal trainer, you're training better, you're training smarter because of that technology. So we're always pushing the envelope, in technology, but not getting away from that people first, right? It's that friendly welcome. It's welcome to VASA. It's have a great day. Thanks for visiting us at VASA. See you tomorrow. So it's really still about the people. And then, obviously in a fast growth environment, I think the number one focus for me and the organization right now is, hiring those team members over the next, 6 months to 2 years to, be able to keep up with this growth and finding, qualified personal trainers and certified instructors to teach these classes.
Is that going to require you evolving your model where you're going to have, whether like years ago, people used to have these academies where they would actually bring their own people on and develop them within the business.
Correct.
I guess now with you having so many locations you're adding, is that going to be something that you'll have to engineer into the business as well?
We absolutely will. So a lot of both internal and external from a recruiting standpoint. So hiring somebody might be their first job as our MES or member experience specialist at the front desk, selling memberships, welcoming team members. Maybe they're interested in teaching a group fitness class, teaching studio or personal training, getting them on a path through certifications and our partnerships there to be able to get them to be ready to be personal trainers and really grow a career within VASA versus just, this is a great summer job. I did it for 4 months. I'm going to head back to school and that was the end of it. We can create pathways. But because of our rapid growth, we're absolutely having to look and recruit more outside and finding those professionals that want to work for us that haven't been within our ecosystem, certainly.
As you think about expansion, give the audience some perspective on where you operate today and what your next couple of years look like.
Absolutely. So currently we're in 8 states, Arizona to Indiana. Our largest density is Utah, Colorado, followed by Illinois. So this year we're adding 3 more states onto our plate, which is Idaho. So we're coming to Boise, Idaho. We're coming to Michigan, and we're coming to Iowa as well this year. Next year, first part of Q1 of next year in 27 is going to be Ohio is our next market. So the idea is really kind of this hub and spoke mentality. We like to come in with high density. It helps obviously from a branding perspective, from cost savings on staff and training and those types of things. So identifying markets that can handle these large boxes, with the density that we're looking for, without cannibalizing our own members to go to the shiny new club that might be opening up a few years down the road in those major markets, kind of within that Midwest. So that's where we're at right now.
And also, look, a cold plunge, recovery what you're doing, that's not common in the HLP space, and that's included in a $45
Correct.
membership, and it's the same price across all regions.
Correct.
What are you thinking about from a product innovation perspective that's coming next?
Yeah.
Because you seem like a pretty progressive brand.
Yep. I think right now it's going to be the refinement of the studio programming. So it's going to be being a little bit more specific around the programming and how those programs talk to each other, right? I want to know if you go to a Studio Red that might be more focused on, let's say, pushing movements and not as much lower body, then I can take that schedule on Monday and I know what I worked, and on Tuesday I can do a lower body lift. So eliminating the redundancies and being smart around programming, so I can sit with you after your assessment and say, here's the easy button. Just follow this for 30 days, and this is going to be a well balance between strength and cardio and recovery for that program. And then, oh, by the way, we want to build in recovery. So I want you to hit the hot tub, the cold plunge, the sauna, the massage chairs within there. So I think number one is improving the programming that we're going to be offering in there and just getting refined on that and getting smarter about how we're programming. And then from the innovation side, I think Pilates is enough, right, for this year. Yes. We'll get through the Pilates and then the Pilates growth into 27 and beyond as we expand more of those offerings into the club, which is great. But we're looking at, changing everything from our offerings on the supplement side at our front desk, right? Like our Revive retail is a huge opportunity for us. Members are out there, buying their creatine gummies or buying their, their energy drinks and amino replacements and whatnot. So expanding that too. So kind of taking a holistic approach, but not losing sight of our core, which is fitness, right?
And I mean, you mentioned not losing sight of your core. How do you also, from an operational perspective, maintain that operational efficiency to still provide value? Because you're adding, I guess, there's a lot of things that you've got in there. You've got the recovery, you've got all the different Group X programs where you're almost competing with a lot of the boutique studios. You've got your fitness and the supplement side. That sounds like heavy from an operational delivery perspective. How are you kind of ensuring that doesn't run away with you and you get too heavy in terms of your fixed costs?
Correct. Great question. And so I think it starts with our onboarding, right? It starts with, every team member that starts with us experiences each of those studio products. You can't speak to it, you don't know unless you, so that's a requirement when you're hired with us. Go through a personal training assessment and personal training session. Go through all, 4 or 5 of the studios, depending on how many studios are offered in each of those clubs. And then augmented through our micro learning. We got a partnership with Opus, who does all of our LMS for all of our team members. So micro learning, not just, hey, it's day one.
We had Opus on at Connected a couple months ago.
You did, with Rachel and Rachel.
Yeah, we had Rachel on. She's great.
She's fantastic. So great partner of ours. The agility there is, I'll give you a perfect example. The end of May, we adjusted our personal training consultations from 60 minutes to 30 minutes with this new technology. There's massive amounts of efficiency there that we do with this technology through Demotu. People are busy these days. I don't want to sit maybe and commit an hour of my life for you to tell me I'm out of shape and I need to train and all those great things. So how do we condense that experience and being able to set up that program for you in 30 minutes? We give that content and that structure to Opus and our team, on our development team, for our learning and development team and education team. They can put that in Opus and then instantly flip the switch, assign it to all the personal trainers, personal trainer leads, and have them go through those classes. And then it's the retraining, right? There's so much coming at the team quickly now with so much change. You can't just do the one and done, watch this couple minute segment, a clip on Opus. So the retraining, the making the knowledge stick over time is really critical for us to make sure we don't lose sight from those things. Then I think, lastly, which I'm really excited about, is the ability to take our member feedback and tie it back into the loop with Opus and be able very shortly to say, if we have a club that has an NPS score that might not be great as a welcoming experience from the front desk, we can identify, we need to retrain those groups. We can target certain groups to assign new trainings to make sure that they're up to what the latest and greatest in the training is, so that we're providing our members the best experience.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
I really appreciate it, gentlemen. It's been a great time.
Thanks
so much, Matthew. Both great chatting with you.
Sean Hess, founder of Eudaimonia and CEO, sorry.
No, that's all right. Thanks for having me.
We had a good chat as we were waiting for Mo in the line.
We
had a good chat off camera about your background, Wanderlust, which was a music-based event.
Yeah, music and wellness combined. Yeah,
music and wellness. And you were telling us some interesting stories about how the musicians and a lot of the rock stars, I guess, of the younger days have sort of moved over to this wellness type of lifestyle, realizing that they can't sort of hammer it 24/7 and still perform on stage.
Yeah, or still be alive, actually, I think is in many of their cases. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, we started my partner Jeff and I and Skylar started Wanderlust in 2009. And at that point, it was really about yoga and meditation and sort of mindfulness practices, outdoor activities and runs on mountainsides, and then concerts at night. And we quickly saw that there was a large range of musicians who were really attracted to the event. And I think it was really because that in some ways, the music, as music has always done, it was leading culture, right? Like mainstream music fans hadn't caught up to wellness practices, but the musicians, both for self-preservation and just really for interest, they had become, vegetarians and vegans before that was a trend. They were, finding ways to work out, while on tour and trying to figure that out. And a lot of them were sober at a time when not many people were sober curious yet. So it was really interesting. So one example I would think of is Moby, who came to play our festival sort of early on, and he's like a neuroscience geek, was a vegan and, ethical vegan, and, was absolutely, like, it came down to the point where his pillow had to be all natural. We had to purchase a special pillow just for him to sleep in the bed. But the point being that some of these practices, which are now actually, I think, becoming more mainstream, were on the leading edge at that time.
So what was the transition from Wanderlust to your new event now?
Yeah. So I ran Wanderlust with my partner Jeff and Skylar from 2009 to really end of 23. I sold the company in 2022. Jeff had left a couple of years before then. We sold it to actually an Australian company that carries the brand on now. They do actually great events in Australia, large health and wellness gatherings, and also have released a line of plant-based supplements. So they're I believe, #1 category leader in Australian market for plant-based supplements. So that's what Wanderlust is doing, but they were not coming over here quickly enough for my own taste after I sold the company. So I worked with them for about a year, and then Eudaimonia was my next venture.
And with Eudaimonia, so and we're going to learn a little bit more about this event. Yeah. But when you started to, you've got a background in I guess the music industry and events. Wanderlust sounds as though it's kind of a.
We won't talk about that.
Wanderlust sounds as though it's a bit in between music and wellness. This is a real wellness event. So coming into a relatively new space, putting on an amazing lineup of speakers, and you're still relatively young, third year, I guess, at the moment. Is that right?
You're coming into it. Yep.
Coming into your third year. What did you see was the opportunity, and how did you go about deciding who would be your equivalent of your sort of rock star lineup in terms of the speakers and presenters that would be leading that event?
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, because I was in the wellness events industry, for lack of a better word, I was always looking at trends, and a couple things popped up for me. First was COVID. I mean, a lot of it actually comes out of COVID.
Yeah.
COVID drove everyone completely crazy. So it made consumers absolutely obsessed, and I think much more engaged and active in finding out information and seeking their own wellness story and finding things that work for them, and just much more empowered, I suppose, as a result of just perhaps mistrust, which is a negative, but that's the positive side of it, is more agency. The other thing that happened is it created health and wellness celebrities for the first time. I mean, Andrew Huberman had like 20 followers in 2020, and now he's got, 20 million followers. And really that all came during that time when everybody was so interested in finding out what was true, what was science-based, what is actual actionable information that they could trust. And so, well, when you run an events business, what do you need? You need celebrity, or you need people who can help you sell tickets, and you need a theme or story, or there's growing passion. I could see the passion happening, and I could see the celebrities being created. And then I guess there's one other thing, which is kind of goes back to my Aura Ring and other wearables, which is like, that didn't exist in the days of Wanderlust. There were no real wearables. There was no way to really monitor and test in this quantified self thing that has now become, a dominant force. And so that all happened post 2022. And then, and as a result, every consumer, now you have the brands that are participating, and the ecosystem is now exploding. So that's the third leg of the stool, if you will, which is that we need brand partners to come in, expo, and consumers are really excited about learning what the latest tech is. You see it all over the floor here. And so that's become a big part of the event as well.
So as you think about, so you're definitely close to the trends. You kind of saw and I agree with you, COVID pulled forward. So this evolution, I think, was happening where people were going to take control of their own health and get a deeper understanding of what's happening, because a lot of the issues with our healthcare system.
Yeah.
And our whole industry is set up more to treat sickness rather than to prevent sickness, but COVID really pulled forward that evolution, I think probably by 5 to 10 years, depending on how you look at it.
Yep.
You are at the forefront of what's happening. Give us a preview of this year. What are you seeing that's coming? What are you seeing that's potentially trending that's early that we might not be aware of yet?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would doubt that my crystal ball is any better than yours, but what I would say is that, we'll probably have 10,000 consumers at the event this year. So it's a huge, just interesting to see what people are really passionate about. I mean, one thing that I think is just undeniable across the industry is anything that is social plus wellness is, I think, just growing so fast. And you see that in the other ships and the, bathhouses and the brands like that, but you see it on a grassroots level too. And I think anything that really can take wellness into a community or communal setting, and obviously that's a trend we're benefiting from as well. I think so that's one whole thing that I think is just huge and out there. There's a lot of interest, I think, in sort of moving. This touches on our earlier our conversation of sort of figuring out what a conscious way for de-stressing is, and maybe doing that without alcohol or other intoxicants. And there's just a rising and increasing sober curious or just completely sober movement that we're seeing happening. And maybe that's sometimes California sober, as you made, and there are other variations on it, but I think it's a very interesting trend to watch in general. And then, I think it's just the other thing is really just evidence-based. People are asking harder questions of products, of the figures who are the authority figures who are saying, people are really, there's AI to help, and you can really do so much research now that you just could not do even 2 years ago. So when somebody's trying to sell you something and making a marketing claim, I think consumers are really doing that research and starting to look into it and make sure you can back it up. So I think you see that across technology and supplementation and other things. So
we're talking about certain crossovers. You mentioned that next year you've got Diplo potentially coming with his
run. He's unfortunately not coming, but we do have we're doing a 5K run with an unannounced DJ that is a very cool, prominent band. So it'll be very cool.
Right. So there's crossovers now with musicians, DJs, and fitness. Is there any other areas where you're seeing some interesting overlaps or other industries that probably weren't connected to fitness and wellness sort of getting involved in the space now, whether that's consumer brands that are looking at that as an opportunity, or even other sort of segments and industries?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Our partners, obviously in the first 2 years, almost all of our partners are brands like, Function Health or whatever, Momentous, or, there's brands that you would expect, endemic brands, for lack of a better word. Then we started working with Rivian, and now we have Ramp, and we have a bunch of other brands that, you would think, oh, that's not a direct, well, why are you there? And the reason is the demographic. And I think that, you're talking about highly educated, healthy, generally affluent, self-directed people who tend to inhabit this, elite wellness sphere. And, I think every brand wants to talk to that. And the other thing about it is, and we noticed this also back in Wanderlust days, is that wellness it's a halo effect for a brand. So even if your brand has nothing to do with wellness, that you still want to associate it with it because you want to be associated with the positivity of the message. And I think that, you're going to see more and more as it grows and broadens. I think you'll start to see more and more mainstream brands coming in for the ride, for sure.
Do you see that wellness consumer TAM expanding? Because we certainly do in the fitness and gym sector. And that's why you have brands like Rivian, because I think two things. They want to signal that they care about those high intent consumers, and they're building products that would align with the thinking and lifestyle of people that are wellness focused. Ramp is interesting because they're more of a bank, or an expense platform.
Well, again, but they want to reach people who run companies. They want to reach. They know, and they look at the stats on the incredible growth of the consumer health and wellness set, and they want to sign up all those growing brands that are showing up at our site. We also run, we have a thing called Health Innovation Lab we do with Fit Insider, which is bringing together investors and CEOs or startup founders of earlier stage consumer health companies. And so, that is another thing they want to be involved in because they're right there at the beginning. I mean, they need to sign companies up to continue their flywheel and sort of bring them into the ramp ecosystem. And the earlier they can do that, the better. So, I think everyone's looking around and just seeing the growth, really, is what it comes down to.
Well, let's dig into Health Innovation Lab here for a minute. So, because I'm not the closest to our industry in some ways, what type of companies, if you're an early health innovator, you've got a product, how can they participate in the Health Innovation Lab? And if you're a larger company, how can they participate in it as well?
Yeah, so it's targeted, I would say, at people that are seed or Series A, sort of in that world where they have a product. It's not just an idea in their head. It's an application-only event, so you do have to apply, and we review to kind of make sure you're there because we want to make sure it's not so much a filter of who you are or how good your idea is, but rather that you're at a stage where you can take advantage of the kind of relationships you're making there. And so we're bringing in people who invest in, seed, Series A, Series B companies. And so obviously there's that direct connection where you might meet the guy who writes the check to fund your next stage of growth. The people with more established, so having, Kat Cole from Aging One or Jonathan Swartland from Function Health Come, that's more of on an inspirational. They're founders who have either exited or they're close to exit. They're people who can provide advice and almost mentorship to younger founders who, haven't gone down that road yet. And so that would be another piece. And that's more, there's a smaller smattering of people, but we really try to make sure we have people who can kind of show the path of how it looks to get from seed to, Series D or exit.
What are you seeing is some of the emerging ideas which your group is thinking about investing in? So, and I'll probably put that a couple of ways. So clearly your speaker lineup is definitely going to be led by consumer interest. So there's certain topics that people are going to be talking about.
Yep.
And then you've got the investment side where they're looking for some of these very early stage entrepreneurs to put money into. So from your perspective, what are you seeing or hearing that could give a signal about where things are going to go in the next sort of 3 to 5 years and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a tough one to answer clearly. I mean, I think it's one of the things, all I can say is that we have a venture fund of our own that we're just starting, and our thesis is to double down on evidence-backed. So we're really trying to make sure that I believe there's a lot of companies that have had a very successful launch based on celebrity profile or really good marketing. But I think, as mentioned with my AI comments earlier, more and more consumers are going to be able to see through that. So you really need to make sure you have something that the science stands up, you have studies. So that's one thing. We're also looking for companies that have a bit of a moat. I think there is so much competition out there, and you look at the franchising model for that's what my panel is about later. And there's it's crazy how much activity there is. And so, the question is, why is company A going to beat company B? And usually for us, at least, one of our theses is looking for companies that have some bit of protectable IP. It doesn't have to be a patent, but it could be like a trademark or an exclusive supply agreement. It could be a network effect because they've already built a very large community. So just something that allows us to say, okay, you can stand out from the pack because, the more money that's pouring in and we see what's going on, the more that's going to be, the more that there's going to be more upstarts coming in to chase it. So yeah, that would be my off the top of my head.
One final question. This event at Athletech is very much of a fitness-based event, and you're seeing that. And bringing in speakers like yourself and others, brands from Planet Health, and to focus a bit more on the wellness side. Your event, I would say, is a lot more consumer, a more B2B, and then a lot more wellness focused.
There is a lot of fitness too. I haven't talked about it much, but
that's my question, right?
Yep.
Is, we're both in the fitness industry. Eudaimonia has been on the periphery for us. But I think that's the wellness industry as a whole. The Global Wellness Summit, as an example, massive event. They never have actually reached out to us to say, does the fitness industry want to be part of the Global Wellness Institute? But from a consumer perspective, that out of 10,000 consumers who are coming, 10,000 of them are participating in fitness.
Yes.
Right? So why do you think that there's been a lack of this, better interaction and collaboration between these two worlds?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And actually, it's really funny because one of the things that one of my high-level goals at starting Eudaimonia was to break down the barriers I saw that existed even within wellness, let alone fitness. So first of all, there's, what I think of as OG wellness, which might be, yoga and meditation and, natural foods. There's the biohacking community, which is much more performance offer, side. There's a longevity space, tends to skew older, also sort of different remedies and protocols. And then there's, even you look at functional medicine, or let's call it the progressive wing of the conventional medicine world. And then there's all these things that feed into that. I mean, you cannot actually, without some form of fitness, you can't be well. Right. You're right. 100% of the people there would have some sort of. So what is it? I think it's partially, and in all of these things, why were those groups all disparate? Well, they culturally were like different groups that came at it from different ways. And I think fitness culturally does have a slightly different vibe. And I notice even when I get like a fitness guy on a panel, and it's like, there's a different way of speaking, there's a different focus and emphasis. But I think what's really interesting is that crossover. And I've been working to break down those walls. I think you're seeing it happen naturally. That crossover, those walls are just absolutely dissolving. It's like the amount of gyms that are popping up, wellness centers or longevity centers inside them, it's happening all the time. I think there's, we have High Rocks and we have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and we have running and we have Orange Theory coming. And, there's so many major fitness brands. We have boxing coming. Like that are, very much part of it because that's what our wellness consumer also wants. And so I think it's really just that we've all been talking past each other, and maybe the capital flow and the just community sort of aspects were bifurcated, but that's really starting to break down now. Maybe wearables is another factor too, because it's like you now have this dashboard which you're looking at every day, which is saying, yeah, you need to be out there and move more. But guess what? You also need to sleep better. You need to, you go down the list. So, yeah, it's a great question.
Well, look, thank you very much for your time. And hopefully we're going to be at Eudaimonia later this year.
Well, now that we've broken down the walls, we expect to see you there. So that's great.
Thank you very much.
It's really a pleasure.
Thanks, John.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it. So we have Eric Casaburi. And Eric, you are... Well, I view you as an industry OG and a legend. And Matthew, I'll tell you the story why. So you know this, but I moved to New Jersey in 91. And there weren't that many. I mean, we had, I think, New York Sports Club at the time. I worked at a YMCA. There was a club up in Wyckoff.
That's right.
Oakland Athletic, was that it? Or
I don't...
Well, there's one in Oakland.
Yes.
So I worked out there because my dad played squash. And I remember they had the rackets, right? So I graduated college in 98, but I stayed local. So off of Route 4, this new gym opens up, Retro Fitness. And Eric, of course, like I know Eric now, but he was the founder of Retro Fitness. He had an incredible run. You're still involved, you're still on the board.
Yes.
But what we want to talk about today is we're at Athletech in New York, and Eric founded Serotonin. So to me, Eric, you're in the industry, you kind of left the industry. So I think we did something to you, and you're now coming out. Look, we're trying to pull you back. Well, we literally are. I said, Eric, are you going to be at this event in New York? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, how do you not know about Athletech happening? This was maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to be here.
No, nope.
But are you glad you're here?
I'm absolutely delighted. And thank you. It was a text message from Mo that he's like, hey, literally, that's a true story. Like, yeah, it was out of the blue. I'm sitting on my couch and I'm like, look at my wife. I'm like, how do I not know about this? And then I looked into it. I connected with Ed, and next thing you know, Mo makes an email connection. I talked to Pete more about it, and all of a sudden he's like, you got to go to this thing. You got to be here. Yes. And I'm so glad I'm here because this is an incredible event. And it's just great to be around all the people. And you said you're never really out of this business in fitness, right? It's like a mafia, right? You kind of can't get out of it.
No.
So
as much as you try.
And all the connections, right? Like all you people, all the friends that I've made. And now with Serotonin, obviously, we're trying to make that intersection, that merge happen with the business I currently run and the business I currently ran, and I used to run, right? The current intersection, I think, is the future of the business anyway. So it's exciting to be here and get to have these conversations.
Well, Eric, you're a successful entrepreneur, know a lot about business. Take me back to your mindset when you started Retro, some of the things that you noticed, some of the things that got you excited in order to go on and build that business. And then what would you connect to when you started Serotonin? And talk about that journey and some of the things, I guess, that you'd learned during that journey at Retro that have put you in the position where you are now to go on with a slightly different venture?
I mean, I've always been a health and fitness crusader, as kind of like I refer to myself, because I've loved, since my early teens, I was always exercising, working out. I was into the gyms because of sports and athletics. I got a job in my first gym because we couldn't afford a gym membership. So my mother said, well, go get a job there and they'll give you the membership for free. And that's what I did. So I learned the business really from the urinal cakes up, because that was my first job. I cleaned the bathrooms, changed the urinal cakes out.
No way.
Like, I was the locker room guy. Yeah,
Okay,
I did it all.
wow.
Anything.
I did not go that far.
Yeah, I was pretty deep.
The first I went as it relates to that was I worked at GNC to get a discount on my supplements.
There you go.
There you go. It was a good discount. It's like 40% or something like that.
Listen, employee discounts are awesome. So that's where it really started. It always resonated. So as I was getting older, got personal training certificates. There are all kinds of things to stay integrated. And when I finally got to open up my first gym, it was 1996, 30 years ago. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. 30 years ago, I opened my first gym. I was a kid. Made a lot of mistakes, learned a ton, geographically successful, right place, right time, what a good gym, great equipment. And I just loved the people. I loved what we were doing. I loved helping people. I loved seeing people get fit. I love being fit. It's been it's really the foundation of most of my life was really fitness. And as I started to iterate, I wanted to grow. I wanted to expand. I started going to conferences. I started going to Tony Robbins things. I Unleash the Power Within. I mean, you name it. I did Business Masters. So I went and saw Zig Ziglar speak. So I started following all of these great people to educate myself on how to grow, on self-growth. And then self-growth, and then I had to expand my business horizons as well. And then I thought of Retro Fitness, and it was 2004. I trademarked Retro Fitness, launched the first franchise, a year and a half later, turned my gyms into the Retro Fitness brand. And we hit it at the right time. I had gotten a phone call from someone you guys probably know. It was actually Brian Mitchell. He's a dear friend. And Brian says to me, he goes, hey, you got to check out these guys in New Hampshire. And they were doing the first HVLP. It was Big Rommels, right? It was Planet Fitness. And I said, well, how can they make any money doing that? I was charging $49, $59 a month in my gyms. And we were doing really well. And then I hired my accountant to research the math, right? Because I'm an operator. I'm not an accountant. And when we looked at it, we saw personal training, what we could do here, our juice bars. We were going to just put a different spin on it, which is how I built the Retro brand. I built it with all of not just purely no frills at a low price, but we started to be additive, which is what you're seeing today with, look at Crunch 3.0, all these bigger brands. They're iterating and being additive to the brand. They just put in Pilates. They're doing amazing things. But that's how I built Retro. I built it off. So the foundation was entry, take the barriers down. Rudy Fabiano and I have these conversations many times when we're designing the gyms. He's like, you gotta get all the detours out of the way. You gotta create something that makes you want to stay, touch points. And I was thinking, well, price is a thing that makes you want to stay, but then you have to have these other touch points. So we added the juice bar in. We really pushed heavy on that. We added group training when it started to get popular. And then, of course, aerobics was always there. We had spin. We've done every iteration of all of it, and we made it work for the client. So to answer your question, a very short question with a long answer, as we were iterating the Retro Fitness brand, I kept falling more and more in love with what I was doing. It was never work. It's just never worked for me. Even what I do today, I love it so much. I love it too much probably, but I got into franchising because it was a way to expand, and it really, really did well. We really started franchising heavily in 2008 when everybody was running out of markets. Rents were really low. Some of the best leases my franchisee signed was that year. And then a decade or two later, it really paid dividends for the people that really took that entrepreneurial chance. And we really fed into the entrepreneurial community, and that's how that brand was built. It was built on the backs of our hard work, with the entrepreneurs' hard work and risk. And fast forward, 2019 is when I stepped down at Retro Fitness, started the serotonin brand researched everything. It took me a solid 2 years, and COVID happened. So most people took a breather. I was just like, wow, more time to work, less people and distractions. I crushed it during that period because I was able to get all my research done. I hired all the consultants. I didn't know the consultants in this industry. I'm in longevity. I'm in med spas. I didn't know who the Tom Plummer was, who the Scott Scudder was. I didn't know them in this industry. I know them all in our industry. So I learned and I met and I did all that diligence. It gave me the time to really just stay heads down, really focused, and build what I thought was the original pro forma. And a pro forma is only as good as it is after you put it to work, and then you really see what it can do. And then we built the first store in 2021. We opened it. So we've been at it since 2019, really working with clients and learning, and we've been learning the whole time. We're still learning. And we built an incredible machine, but we took a lot of punches in the face. We learned a lot about this complex business. And then I saw where the intersection should be. And I'm like, oh my God, our best clients wound up being our fitness clients, the ones that we could get to work out. Whenever we put them on any protocol, whether it's hormones, or a GLP, the ones that were in the gyms, in the studios, in the blocks, they were killing it data-wise. Like their in-body scans were amazing. So then we had to sit down and we said, well, maybe we should be leaning more toward where our real best clients are that are looking to really get in better shape, feel better, look better, be healthier, and they're inside the gyms.
Well, so we've been talking about this now for a few months, and you know, have gone back and forth, and I've been talking to people in the industry, and you believe, and I think I would agree with you that, in fact, we had this conversation right before this in the break room area, that are the gyms going to be offering clinic-like services inside the four walls? And we've talked about this. When I go to the gym industry, and people that you and I both know, they'll say, well, why would I give my member to them and they're controlling the journey? What you just explained was, this is a great retention tool and it's going to help keep the member. It's going to be more outcome focused. So speaking, you know, you come from the gym industry, how would you speak back to your peers on why they should be thinking about serotonin or other types of wellness services within their four walls?
So Mo, to that exact point, most of the research we did, because when I started learning about the clients that were really, really effective, in our Orlando market, we are very popular with there's a local Pilates studio. They're great, Fit 407, they're awesome. And we're very friendly with the owners because we just know each other really well. We all live in the same area. And it was the success of a lot of their clients at our centers that made us think that it's a retention tool for them. They crush it, crush it. But I would say a good portion, a very large majority of their clients are our clients. So there's an attribution of that retention to the success because we have them on, whether it's on HRT, peptides, or GLP, monitoring it, helping them with their macros. So when they go and do that workout, they're getting the results for it. So we explain to the gym owner, not giving us a client. We're helping you retain your clients. We're partners in that.
Yeah.
We're the part of the box that you can't, well, I think you can't. Very difficult for you to do it yourself, but it's a necessity. If you really believe in retention and the attrition issue, this is a solution. It's like saying, why am I giving my client to the treadmill or to the spin instructor?
I just want to go a little bit deeper on that one about you mentioned doing it yourself. So there's so many degrees of implementation. You could offer and kind of outsource some of the services. You could just say, I'm going to offer maybe IV drip therapy, but not get into peptides. Mm-hmm. You could just say, if you're on a peptide or GLP-1, I'll educate my trainers to come and understand what that means. What is the right balance? Because we have these conversations and gyms are unclear about what should they offer their members. Should it be physical? And then what is the scope of services that they should offer?
There's a very defined line in the sand. If you're going to offer anything medical, even an IV, you're putting a needle in someone. You need now a medical practitioner, medical director. You got to follow an incredible amount of rules and laws and follow CPON, corporate practice of medicine. So if you step over that line, you're in that game, you're in that box. You better know all the legality, the potential harms, the harnesses, consent, everything. HIPAA, PHI, there's a whole new world you have stepped into. You are now becoming a plumber and you're going to become an electrician. You need to go to trade school because if you don't, you're going to get hurt and you're going to hurt people. That's really bad. Now, the other side of that line is I just put in, a cryo bed, or I put in, a red light therapy bed, or something that's not medical. It could be part of recovery, but it's not really part of the full suite. And I've said this before. What really needs to happen is you need to start with blood work. So if you're really going to be in the recovery game, you really need to understand your client. Yeah. Because it's all part of it's blood work. It's looking at inflammation, cortisol, hormones, of course. A1C, fasted glucose. This is all stuff that's important to an exerciser. Insulin sensitivity. These are meaningful terms that an exerciser should know, but you need a provider that's qualified to sit with them and read this information. So now you're in a medical business essentially. I mean, if you really want to be in the recovery business, what we feel is the right way, because we do it every day, hyperbaric chambers, red light beds, IV therapy, peptide. That is the whole suite of recovery. You can portion it off, but you're really not in full recovery. You're just not. It's like, I don't know, it's like going to surgery and they do the sutures and they don't, put a bandage on top. It's like, it's only part of the job. That's how I look at it. That's how we feel about it. We've seen the best results when we've done a full suite with clients. And I don't think the industry is solved doing it, what I would say, half-assed.
So from Eric's perspective, what caused you, well, what drove you personally to say, I'm going to set up this totally new business called Serotonin, compared to, hey, look, we've got this footprint, we've got all these potential clients that could be could buy a lot of these services. What stopped you figuring out a model where you could actually plug that straight into your existing business or come up with a new model compared to setting it up yourself? And that, for you personally, that is.
I would say if it was 10 years ago and I was in the peak of me, running retro fitness at that time, I likely would have probably brought this in a very full suite environment like I just described. The inspiration for the business really came from my wife. My wife is now 53. At 41, she went through early menopause. She had no idea what it was. The OBs were just telling her, freeze your uterus, do like really bad advice, things to do that didn't solve what her problem was she had no estrogen in her blood. She had a very small traceable amount of testosterone. She was like a walking ghost. It was crazy. She was getting, so the inspiration for that was seeing her go through this and then finally learning, the third doctor we spoke to, trying to continually find solutions, that said check her hormones. And when we checked her hormones, we learned all that information I just said. The very next day, because we learned that if you don't have estrogen, obviously, if you don't know this, and our listeners don't know this, estrogen protects our heart. So women at an exponential rate die because of cardiovascular issues, heart issues, not because of breast cancer, which is all very important, but it gets a lot of attention. But if they realize that protecting your heart with estrogen and having your hormones optimized is really, really much more important to longevity and health optimization for a female, especially for a female. Bone density, osteoporosis, osteopenia, all that gets offset and trajectory changes when you optimize hormones. So watching my wife go through that and seeing that happen, so she won a bioidentical pellet the very next day. And our lives changed. Our marriage changed. Our parenting changed. There is correlative data that's happening now between the divorce rate and hormone decline in a certain age group right now that you can read. Wow, it's crazy. But I went through it, so we understand it. So Kim and I talk very empathetically and passionately about it. And Kim, she's in sold out crowds now, talking all around Orlando to women's groups and doesn't make a penny for it, but does it all free. In fact, she'll pay for women's blood work. She'll sign them up and say, I'm going to pay for your blood work, and she'll put them in the book because she's that passionate, because she saw how it fixed her life. It really did. So that's what put us on a path of passion for it. And moving forward, I look back now and say, gosh, if the timing was probably different, I probably would have done this a lot earlier, and we really would have been ahead of the curve, and it would have been almost like, it's a little taboo, women's, hormones up until very recently, which it shouldn't have been. Because my wife's been on for 12 years and she's incredibly healthy, thank God. And she is as happy as she's ever been. I won't even stand next to her in a Pilates class because I look like an idiot. Like she's incredibly strong at every level. So I think today is different in my view than it was then. And you always have hindsight is always 2020. But had I known what I had an experience that we went through, I probably would have been like, I wouldn't have even thought it would have been a mandate. I would have been, we're definitely doing this. And you wouldn't have been able to change my mind, to be honest.
And you think about the ripple effect that has to fitness centers too. Like she might be going to the gym, but not seeing the progress and always questioning and wondering what's going on. So there's an awareness element of this that you're telling me about that I think the industry is lacking. You don't learn this stuff by taking a NASM certification. You don't hear this stuff by even at an Equinox TRX certification. So the awareness has to be built. I mean, how can the industry learn more about the awareness side?
And this is where the important part comes. We call it edutainment, right? You got to entertain people. So we do a lot of content, conversations like this that will iterate out there and they'll get out into the world. We do a ton of it. So our goal is in our content, even for Serotonin right now, we have shifted from all the silly stuff that you would see on Instagram for people doing stuff in gyms and the fitness and wellness and even in the med spa space. We've really leaned into talking education points and teaching and giving examples and then doing before and after testimonials. So it's about educating the trainers, not just the owners, the people that are communicating directly with the clients, with the members. They have to understand there's a whole nother level to your success that's beyond what I'm doing inside the four walls of my gym today. And I tell the story often about my first experience. I remember at my gym in the late 90s when a guy came in waving a prescription pad. I just talked about this. And he had a prescription, and we're like, what are we going to do with this guy? His doctor said he's got to join the gym. And I'm like, we don't have anybody qualified to look at that prescription and do anything with you. And it was true. Yeah, you put him on a treadmill, you hope for the best, you give him a workout, maybe you work on his macros. Like, it's nuts. And when you think about it today, you're like, wow, there's so much more help. How do you do it? It's teaching, Mo. It's educating the staff, the team, the players of the whole picture, because you really want that client to be successful. The reality and the truth is the gym and the fitness is only one component, right? We know that.
Yes.
Sleep is another component. We know nutrition. We've been talking about it for years in the gyms. Dot Fit, Apex, Neil Spruce, he built the whole company around that other component here that was really good. And then you've got this whole recovery, and then you've got this medical component. So when I talk to friends, and I do these talks for high net worth individuals in my community that I talk to, and I literally have, it's like a 4-page PowerPoint, and it talks about the 4 pillars. And fitness is, of course, is one I could talk probably the whole thing about. I love it, but it's only one pillar. We talk about the recovery pillar, the nutrition pillar, and we talk about the medical pillar. We need your blood work. Because if those two aren't connected, and your doctor isn't familiar with your routine, and your gym trainer doesn't understand what your doctor wants you to do, and your doctor has to be educated also. You have to have the right type of medical practitioner, right? So some of your general practitioners, they might not be fond of any of this because they didn't learn it, or they didn't study it, or they don't, it's just not their lane. And I respect that. They're very intelligent, they're great at what they do, but they may not be great at advising someone whose goals aren't to not die, but to live incredibly well.
Yeah.
Eric, thank you very much for your time today.
It's my pleasure, Matt. It's great to be with you guys.
Hussein, with Ultra Human, we're so excited to have you on. I've been having my Ultra Human ring on now for 6 months at least, I think. Maybe a little
not
longer.
the latest one.
Well, this one's new. This one I've had on for like about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. This is the Ring Pro, which is now selling in the US, right? There's a history behind this, which we can get to in a minute. Yeah, I've got my charger with me. This thing holds, so like the ring itself is 14 hours, which is pretty impressive. And then that charger, I don't know, I've only charged it like once, I think. And
nice.
I don't know how many hours this thing has a charge for.
45 days.
35 days. Well, we're excited to have you on. Thanks for being on Lifts.
No, thanks for having me.
So you've been telling me a little bit about glucose monitors, blood glucose or continuous glucose. So tell us a little bit about the history of that, like how it started, where it is today, and what you guys' involvement is with it.
Yeah. So most people know Ultra Human as, a ring, smart ring company, because we offer the leading no subscription smart ring in the world, leading smart ring in Asia. But the origin of the company actually started in metabolic health. So Ultra Human had built a digital fitness and content app during COVID that grew a community, and essentially launched an integration with an Abbott CGM as the first hardware that connected to the app ecosystem and the Ultra Human platform, which was called M1, essentially for metabolism. And the goal was to give non-diabetics and everyday users, biohackers, performers, everyday people, an understanding of how different foods affected their body by showing you continuous glucose. And interestingly, the very first clinical studies that Ultra Human was worked on were not with smart rings, because the company didn't have a smart ring at the time, but were with Fitbits and CGMs. So 2021 was when some of that work started, and in 2024 it ended up getting published in Nature, the concept of metabolic health tracking in non-diabetics and pre-diabetics, this notion of metabolic scoring. So we give you a metabolic score out of 100, similarly to how now in the sleep experience, in the ring experience, sorry, you get a sleep score and a recovery score and an activity score as well. So those are sort of the the 4 scores we give you. Of course, if you use the CGM in conjunction with the ring, with the platform, you see not only how different foods affect your body, but how different foods can affect your sleep as well.
One of the things that I always notice that we talk about a lot with the rings and alcohol is you can see how that affects your sleep quite significantly. But I've never thought about food and sleep. So what sort of things are you seeing by having the what is it called? What's the patch called?
CGM, continuous glucose monitor.
So if you got one of those, and so like what sort of things are you typically noticing with food and sleep?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We discovered that a bunch of different users discovered that actually they can't intermittent fast without it affecting their sleep, which is really interesting actually. So they were just seeing a lot of periods of light sleep based on intermittent fasting. I think more women than men as well, interestingly. So that was one. Another good example was in the morning. Most women, it turns out, should eat something before they work out if they do morning workouts. So essentially, their body does not do fasted workouts as well. So I mean, you can see from basically glucose, glucose basically brings down cortisol as well. So there's certain patterns we've seen in morning glucose that kind of correlate, that we've correlated to morning cortisol, and then based on activity or based on morning data. And same with ring data as well. So ring data based on circadian is very correlated with cortisol patterns.
The biggest thing is that we have a lot of wearables, and they're actually, your data is related. So your glucose impact. So the sleep thing I know is interesting because you intermittent fast.
Yeah.
And I actually eat late. Neither one of which I think are great for sleep, right? So I need to stop eating late, but I learned a lot, like little things. So after dinner yesterday, I said, let's walk back to the hotel instead of taking an Uber.
To bring your glucose.
Because it stabilizes your glucose. So I learned a lot of that behavior from actually wearing a CGM. Now, the part that I didn't know is because, so I think also use levels as well, was how it tied into other things like your HRV, your sleep quality, even your performance, because they never really integrated that together. So, and the other thing is a lot of companies today that I've seen are wearable companies that are adding a CGM. With this story here, they started with studying glucose and CGM, then came the wearable. So it's almost like they started in healthcare in a lot of ways and coming in, which I thought was pretty.
Since the CGM is a medical device, right? So technically, the first hardware product of our ecosystem. Right now, we have multiple products that we make ourselves, some that we've launched with partners. But we have two versions of the ring. Obviously, we have a home device as well that measures, your environment and tells you about why you might be sleeping poorly, which you know from your ring, but you don't necessarily always know why. And then now we also have a really cool red light therapy portable device called the Ultra-Human Photon, which we can talk about a little bit. But yes, the company started with an integration with a medical hardware device and brought it to the wellness space. We were essentially, there was no levels in Asia, essentially, right? So the sort of Ultra-Human was that brand. And quickly they were like, okay, we would like to show users how it's affecting their sleep and their daily life and try to find patterns. Some people can metabolize, sugar much better, say before going to bed, just like some people metabolize alcohol much better. And, most people will tell you that their heart will take longer to drop to its resting heart rate baseline during sleep. But a lot of people, I think, will get, but a few people, I think, will say that they can, drink a little bit of alcohol in the evening and sleep like a baby. But similar thing, like, with ice cream before bed, we've heard a lot of those stories. We've actually heard stories of one of members of my team told me that she used to always snack or have something sweet before she went to bed and realized that it's just not something her body can handle, and noticed a huge difference in her sleep change. And similarly, in the morning as well, there's something called the dawn phenomenon, which we've observed.
Well, you get a spike of glucose in the morning.
Yeah, so different.
Yeah, that's what I used to have when I wore it. For some reason, it would just, even if I was fast, I guess, is that a natural thing that your body does? Like, gives you a dump of glucose in the morning to kind of give you energy from your.
That's the thing. It really depends, and you really can't know unless you measure, right? And that's what was so fascinating is when I came across Ultra-Human and met the founders early 2023, they shipped me a ring and a CGM sort of in the same package. And it was the first version of the ring, which was actually pre-Ring Air. There was actually a version before that. I don't know if you guys knew that. But it was called R1, which was actually the first notchless smart ring. So the first, glucose platform version of the app was called M1 for Metabolism 1, and R1 was the ring for Ring 1. Right, so R1 and M1 were sort of the first two products of Ultra-Human. I was interested because I had previously worked at, in the smart ring space, and so I knew a bit about it, and I was curious to see how it would work, and I saw that my periods of, my recovery was poor one day due to periods of light sleep, but those periods of light sleep were actually caused by nocturnal hypoglycemic episodes. So in the timeline on the home screen of the app, this is the early version of the app, early 2023, I was seeing, glucose crashes triggering periods of light sleep, which is why my sleep score was bad, and why ultimately my recovery, was poor the next day. And so I found that.
Do you give the insights then, and then do you then say, with these two things combined, so the app could read glucose data and ring data, and then it gives you corrective feedback. Does it do that now or not yet?
Yeah, so we have a few different, I would say, I would call it like series of nudges and series of insights that are cross-correlated between the two. There isn't a specific journey yet for, say, weight loss. There is a companion power plug now. So, you guys are familiar with the power plugs, which are additional like plugins. Most of them are free, some of them are paid. Basically stands for powerful plugins, right? So there is one now for GLP-1, a companion. So for a lot of our users that were tagging that they were on GLP-1s, interestingly, we built this journey for them to be able to log their symptoms, to be able to log their dosage, and we are monitoring them through that platform using data from not just actually CGM and ring, but also now blood. So we have a blood testing service, on the platform that was launched initially in 2024 and then expanded last year with a partnership with LabCorp notably. And you can, through the app, order a blood test. Either we send somebody to a user's home, or they can choose to go into their local lab, or they can also choose to upload an existing blood report, and that data gets digested as well. So that GLP-1 companion power plug will pull data from your blood test, from your CGM, and from your ring, and it will give you things like there's a safety radar baked in, so if you're taking the medication the safe way. And I think that's something pretty important that people that are taking GLP-1s, which is still fairly recent, can really benefit from.
With glucose, one of the things I was reading recently was because of the introduction of these glucose wearables for regular people, that they were getting obsessed, almost like why I was, about when my glucose score was going high, and it was, people were like worrying unnecessarily about that, because this guy in particular was saying, well, look, that's just a normal thing. So, just because it goes up when you've had food, it's not something you should be worried about keeping your score down or obsessing over. And I know the levels, the way that, and I'm going back a while since I used it, but the way the app was presenting the information, it always looked like whatever you've eaten and you get this spike, it was bad, even if you had pretty good food. So from your perspective, coming from the glucose monitoring background for more people that, I guess, diabetics that need it, what are some of the rules, or what are some of the things that you should be thinking about for regular people about that glucose spike? Because surely it's something that just goes up or down, and are you meant to just sort of be mindful of it, or are there any particular cues that you should be taking away that you guys are presenting?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think there's two ways of answering it. One way is to compare it to, say, the one score that would change continuously throughout the day, which is our movement index, right? So I think other wearables might call that activity score. Similar to we have sleep, recovery, movement, and a stress rhythm as well. And recovery was rebranded to dynamic recovery. So after we launched added circadian insights, and we can get into that as well. But your sleep and recovery score are determined mostly from nocturnal data. So those won't change throughout the day, versus the movement index and the stress rhythm will change throughout the day, and of course the movement is the one that will change continuously. So one way of answering it is to say that the same people that would obsess or might worry about their movement and their steps, right. I think everybody often talked about, like, some people got, like, is it a good thing that some people obsessed about making sure they do then 10,000 steps a day, or is it something that drove people crazy? I think most people, or certainly you guys, would probably argue that it is a good thing. Similarly, one could argue that, it's actually a good thing if people obsessed about their glucose variability and keeping their glucose score, high and within that threshold. And it's similarly, let's say, a bad thing, because all obsessions are a bad thing, right? Everything in moderation, as those people that obsess too much about their steps and their movement score. So that's, I guess, one way one could answer that question. The other way would be that, I think people that are non-diabetic, pre-diabetic, that use CGM, there's two different types of people. There are the super optimizers and performers. They're just like everyday people that really should learn about how specific foods, like what they could make small changes in their diet. Like I discovered, I just can't handle potatoes. I can't handle bananas well before workouts. Like it's really interesting how different bodies react. And really, what you want to do is you want to log. There's a very easy way to log your food in the metabolism tab on the graph, and so you can do that. And we will learn about how different foods are affecting your body. And eventually, you don't change your diet constantly. So you're only going to log a finite amount of things really in there, and out of that finite amount of things, you'll be able to learn, okay, where can you make small changes. We did publish some data around Ramadan. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but the company started in India, then expanded to the Middle East, right? To the UAE was the second market in which our products were launched, and then the US, and the US became one of our largest markets. But there was a Ramadan mode in the app that we introduced actually 2 years ago. It's been 2 years in a row where we introduced a mode for people that were fasting, during that period, and we published a few studies around glucose and sleep variations for people during Ramadan. You can also see how people who were fasting that were on their menstrual cycles, had different deviations. So some of this research is published.
Go back to Ramadan just quickly. Like, were there any standout things that happened to people that were like regular people that were fasting? Yeah. What did that do to their sleep?
Yeah. So what's interesting about Ramadan is relative to a regular fast is there's also no water most of the time, right? And so it's interesting because sometimes, we thought that various things were being affected by, like fasting all day, but there's also certain things we saw in, I would say sleep, like the light sleep periods. There were some light sleepers, I think, that probably didn't hydrate as well, before going to bed. And those were certain habits that I think we had to factor out in the data.
Do you think people were sleeping better because they were fasting? Or I know some people that fast have real problems sleeping. It seems to give them all this energy. Like, do you know which way it ended up or not?
In general, people were sleeping less well and had more periods of light sleep. Right. And more nocturnal hypoglycemic episodes, from what I know. But I think the people who hydrated well were able to deal with that better. And I think it's in general with intermittent fasting. Again, it does depend. It does vary quite significantly between men and women. But it's very interesting to compare, Ramadan compared to regular intermittent fasting from just the hydration, by just removing the hydration component. Of course, we don't have a way of measuring continuous hydration, or at least not yet, right?
So Ultrahuman is building, to me, an ecosystem. We always talk about how important ecosystems are, right? You got to build this personal health OS. So you've got a CGM, you've got blood vision, which tests your blood data. You've got nutrition. You even have Ultrahuman Home. I've got the Ultrahuman little home thing next to my bed. One, what's next, right? So you talked about red light and others, but what is next? The next big one as far as the ecosystem. And do you think that this is what all of the companies have to do to really be more outcome focused? That they have to look at multiple inputs to have the right output?
Yeah, it's always a really interesting debate, and we have this internally as well, of breadth versus depth of data, right? Essentially, or let's say breadth of data streams versus depth of biomarker and biomarker intelligence, essentially, right? I think we have a really good foundation of data streams around metabolism, around sleep, movement, recovery, and stress that essentially come from our bestseller, of environmental data from the home, and of blood data, to start to build some really cool, deep, customer journeys. But right now it's sort of like you're giving consumers all this data, but like, what should they do with it? And so that's kind of what's really next for us, is really building out beyond the ecosystem, these vertical integrations, these power plugs, these journeys to help consumers, do something about their day. So we now have a pocket doctor that allows users to order their insomnia medication or GLP-1s or consult a physician, because I think ultimately, you have one set of users that are fine with data and using AI you guys are probably part of the people that like to use Claude to put in your own data, and we have our own biointelligence assistant in the app called Jade. So Jade AI, you can talk to it, ask it to about, is my wearable data affecting my blood work? Like, when should I get my next blood test? And some people are happy with that experience, but many people still are going to need that human touch. I'm not somebody who personally believe in the AI doctor as a one solution fits all. I think it really is going to depend. Some people are going to be more and more comfortable getting advice from AI that can look at their data objectively, but many people are still going to want to speak to a physician, have them look at their data, or have them look at a report that might have been generated by an AI. So I think we're gonna. I don't think I'm a big proponent of AI is gonna solve all the problems. Just give it data and expect consumers to change their lifestyle and their behavior. And so that's really exciting, and I do think
we'll be sure to include that. But it's saying we're at time right now. But thank you so much for coming on, and we're gonna have to get you back on. I think maybe dig into specific areas.
It'd be nice to do a deep dive in a lot of this, because there's so many things you've covered, like a whole raft of different things that we could be very keen to go into. So maybe we break down those key subjects and we'll get you on with some sort of I don't know what we call it, like biohacking tracking.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get some more briefs, read some more briefs at the science team. They're always coming out with new things, so make sure I have to be up to date and well prepared as well.
Sounds good. Congratulations, you've done a great job. I'm very excited about what you guys are up to. It's pretty unique.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks. You got it. Well, we've got Brian on again for the second time. So Brian, thank you so much for coming on.
Yep.
You've been in the industry with, I think, many different journeys. You were at Othership, you had a life before that. Now I look at you as a mastermind networker, and you just run this phenomenal group.
Yeah,
which whenever I'm able to join, I get so much out of. I've got to, and I have not made it out to one of your group events. So we need to make that a focus.
Invite's there, man.
We've got to make that a focus to do it. So why don't you tell us about, what you're working on now? Because I know the group continues to evolve, continues to get better.
Yeah.
What you're seeing trending.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you said, I'm somebody I've had a number of lives in the industry. I was early at Tough Mudder. I was early at Othership. I was at Barry's for a while. I've actually been a founder myself in the space. So I don't know. Through all of that, I've just noticed that a couple things are true. First of all, it's hard to grow a health and wellness brand. I think that it's a lot easier to sell cigarettes and booze. But to me, it's also true that it's an all boats rise industry. And we say this a lot, but it actually is true. The more healthy consumers out there, the more all of us benefit. And the last thing that I notice is that a lot of the fitness people hang out together, and a lot of the mental health people hang out together, and a lot of the wearable people hang out together, but actually the consumer starts to see everybody as a little more linked than they are maybe in the business's mind. And so I just, on the side a couple of years ago, started to get founders and growth leaders together in the health and wellness space. I'm somebody with a background in building community, but also I'm somebody who really cares about this world needs to get healthier. And the more that we zoom out and remember that, and that we're all brothers and sisters in arms fighting that same fight, it creates an environment where you can actually have a giving mindset. And we can also all benefit commercially too. And so all this kind of led me to a place where I got these people together. It clicked because, like you said, when you come to these events, it's so nice to be around people who share the same values as you. And you're like, these are my people. These are who I want to spend time with. And so I started to do little events on the side, and then I started to do bigger events. When I became a dad, I was like, I want to do my own thing again. I'm going to go for this. And we're now a community of over 225 members. We've got big name brands like Aura, 8 Sleep, Peloton, Headspace represented, but a lot of up and coming brands too. And it's simple. It's just a give first community. We meet virtually monthly, quarterly in person, and we have a Slack community for the day to day. And it's like different people get different things out of it. Some of the early stage are looking for fundraising advice, or they're trying to find partnerships. Some of the later stage people are looking for creative growth strategies. But I think about this a lot. When I was at Tough Mudder, the things that people liked the most, we electrically shocked people. We got them in the dumpsters of ice. Like, they loved reaching over a wall and helping someone else. And it sounds cheesy, but actually we as humans want to help other people. And if you create the right environment, people really get a lot. And then it all comes back tenfold. As you guys know this better than it. You put people on your podcast, things happen. And then a couple years later, it comes back around. And so creating environments where that can happen, especially in an intentional, curated way, I don't know, people seem to like it. So
I joined one of your remote ones, and I got into a couple of groups, and there was one of the things that stood out to me was, as you say, I think there's lots of these different pockets within the health and wellness space, and they don't necessarily always merge or share ideas. And what I liked about the group I was in was there was a real mix of everything from trainers to business owners, but it was really engaging because we all shared a lot of similar problems, but from different perspectives. Like, there was a young lad who was super, huge following on social media, just really seemed to dial that whole thing in, but was learning about his business. And we had a really cool conversation. And then there was another guy who had a very high end, I think it was your guy from Monarch Health Clubs.
Dr. Ryan Green.
We had this doctor on there that was talking about his gym, and we had a really, really great conversation. And so my question to you, Brian, is one, how do you get that eclectic mix of people? Because I think that's extremely valuable to be able to pull those ideas together. Not easy to do. And then secondly, what would you see in terms of some of the themes now that you're hearing your group talk about? What are some of the things that stand out in terms of conversational themes or ideas that are on people's minds?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I know everyone personally in the group. I don't do any outbound, so it's all word of mouth, it's all referral based, and it's very much it's hard and it takes a lot of work to make sure that the people in the room, but one of the best descriptions I've ever had of the group is it's good people pipeline.
Yeah.
That you're going to come, it's going to be people worth meeting, even if it's not exactly the vertical that you're in. So it's hard. I can't claim to say, everybody who applies, I would say, 25, 30% of them actually, I let them in the group, because it's you really have to be selective to make sure that it's going to be the type of people that you want to interact with. And it doesn't mean they have to be rock stars, it just means that, are you the right mindset? Are you the right type of person who is going to get the vibe, for lack of a better term? And it's so funny, they sound so simple, but there's actually complexity to it. But the things that people are talking about right now, I mean, fundraising is a very interesting topic, right? I think that there's a lot of people who are fundraising right now, and I think it's a little more action than I've seen in the past.
Are you finding it more? Well, I have two. One question is around curation, which we get in a minute. But as well as fundraising, is it more the early stage companies? Is it more companies that are looking to scale? What type of requests are you seeing come in?
It's both. I mean, so one of the things I do is I send an email every 2 months to people to investors I know of people in the group who are fundraising. So I don't get anything out of it, but it's a value add, I think, for everybody. And
I love it.
And honestly, you get it.
There's a couple that I got that I'm actually in active conversations with from that group. I found some really interesting companies. I'm I'd love to be a part of that.
Yeah, and it's really nice to be able to be that connective tissue, but as you've probably seen, it's we've got some people who are the pre-seed, the Series A beyond, who are we've got 6 locations, we want to blow it up to 50. And then we've got some earlier stages, I've got a prototype of a cool new, sauna concept that is now we're pre-seed raising. And so I think I've seen action on both. And to see whether, I don't have as much eyes. It's funny, I kind of set and forget, and then I don't see really too much of what happens afterwards. I obviously keep in touch with the founders, but I think that both are finding more traction than I've seen in the past, year or two, I'd say.
So fundraising is one. What's another?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously think that there's, with AI and all the slop and all the ways in which people are empowered to put more content in there and be bigger players on these platforms, I think that now people are trying to think about what are the creative growth strategies beyond just throwing a bunch into the channels, the traditional channels, Facebook, Google, everything like that. But I think that what I'm seeing is that people are very interested in, okay, what are the long-term partnerships that I can either establish with creators, or what are the events that I can start to put on to create a more community is the word that's actually coming up a lot. I'm sure you're seeing it too, where it's what, not just my own community, but how do I build authentic community within our ecosystem so that people come back and you have actual retention that you don't have to
Community
keep
is number
buying.
one. We're seeing it in everything. So
Yeah.
both in digital product, in physical spaces, if you're opening up a new location, one of the first, because I do think that, look, we're in New York City now, and I spent over a decade living in New York City. And people always say, because I've been married in New York City, I've been single in New York City, but it is still one of the loneliest places in the world. And even though you think, how's this possible? You're in the center of the world. It's because we were all so solid and focused. And digital kind of made us even more focused. You've got your AirPods on in the subway, so you're not making the connection anymore. And I think looking at even drinking culture, right, that's changed. And that's why, like when you're at Othership, you saw that. I mean, I actually made friends at Othership by having that community. But when you're bringing like-minded people together who are either there for a purpose or there for themselves, but I think like that community around fitness, around wellness, around a healthy habit, that's really sticky. Because people are no longer making those connections at bars or the workplace, by the way. I think workplace relationships are kind of on the decline. And look at this. Run clubs in New York, and I didn't know this until a couple months ago, but I went in, like, there's a code for if you're single or not single. Do you know about this?
No.
I wore like all black.
Oh yes, lunch. Yeah, they're in my group. If you wear black, you're single. If you wear white,
Okay,
you're
so I
you're
joined.
in a couple.
I did
Yeah.
not know. But I run in a lot. Like I wear a lot of black when I work out because it's easy.
Yeah.
So I showed up in black, not knowing it. But
Nice. I'm sure your wife loved that. Yeah.
well, I had a wedding ring on, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I don't know if I should have the podcast, but they're like, I'm married too. Maybe this could work." And I just said, "Wait, what? What are you telling me?" I'm like, "Well, I didn't wear my ring." I said, "Well, that's good. I'm married." They're like, "Oh, but you're married, but look it." And I'm like, "Whoa." I said, "Okay, I'm not." But there's this, so I think that people look for, even if it's just friendships, connections, could even be guys hanging, right? It doesn't matter, but fitness is driving that. On the professional sense, you are driving that. And I think like you are doing something. There's another group that we know, like a good person who tried to do something very similar out of Germany, right? And it didn't really scale because I think a lot of it are, number one, curation. I think number two, quality of the breakout rooms and how you structure the content. So I think just because of your experience and you've been an operator, you've been, an entrepreneur, you've created that really good. So I'm just real thankful.
I appreciate that, and it's like, it's something that I'm only going to build this brick by brick. It'd be very easy for me to tomorrow go out and start putting Facebook ads, getting things, but I know that communities can break very quickly. I've seen it with communities like On Deck. There's different founders communities out there that once you start chasing the dollars and trying to make it really big, people feel that, and communities, and it's the same thing with businesses. I think the businesses, if you inject a little too much commercialism into it, or if you throw too many logos in, it can start to, people are not as attracted to it. And I think to your point earlier that I see is religion has been on the decline for a long time. People don't have spaces at work as much anymore. But we as humans have this need for belonging. Where do we find it? Gyms are doing it as well. Professional communities are starting to do it. But brands can be that place for you if it's done the right way. And
it's consistent, right? And one thing that was enlightening, we're in New York. I view myself as a New Yorker, even though I live in DC now. The next one. And that brought the city together. Didn't matter. I'm talking about different boroughs, different ethnicities. You saw women covering their head, next to someone from the Bronx at a watch party together, celebrating the Knicks together. I don't remember a lot of times, and it's rare. Those moments are rare. 9/11 came to mind. I went for a run on the West Side Highway by the Freedom Tower today. The city came together, but that's around tragedy. Sandy brought us together, but the Knicks brought us together. That frequency, though, like, you can't predict that. No. The stuff in fitness is predictable because it's really where you engage in yourself. You engage in the investment of yourself. So that's why I think community keeps on coming up, and it's so important.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And the goal is like I said, to just kind of, I'm very proud of where we've gotten to, and there's a lot of opportunity. And if I can just make sure that I'm adding more value than I'm taking, that's the number one goal, and getting creative about it. Like, we have a list of all the creators that we're connected to. So that we have a list of sponsors for events. There's beautiful things can happen when you brain share, where there's a bunch of people and they all put in a little things. what can come from it can be really, really cool. And so like we're also going to be doing surveys around AI usage, like how much because there's so much AI FOMO out there, right? It's like, am I using it enough? And it's like, if you actually knew how much people were using it, maybe it could give you some peace of mind, or maybe you could hear of some tools that might be interesting to implement. And so, yeah, there's lots of ways to slice this, and the key is just to not get overwhelmed, keep your eye on the ball.
So where can people, if they want to check it out and look into it, where do we go?
Yeah, I mean, Brian Von Enken, hard spelling, but on LinkedIn, that's where I'm at, but also join WGM.com, called the Wellness Growth Mastermind, so WGM.com. But yeah, I'm always happy to chat, and odds are, if you reach out to them, they can connect you to me. So, I mean, I'm always happy to have a conversation. So,
brilliant. Brian, thank you very much for your time today.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Perfect.